I'm Natalie Bungay and I'm from the British Pest Control Association. Today we're going to be talking about birds. Birds are very common, we see them every day flying about. However, some of them can cause us a few problems. So I think it'd be really helpful today if we focus on a couple of the species that may cause us these problems. All birds within the UK are protected under the Wildlife and Countryside Act. However, on occasions there are a couple of species of birds that can commonly cause us a few infestations or public health problems, and they are the feral pigeon and some gull species as well. We have two main species of pigeon in the UK. One of them is a wood pigeon and one is a feral pigeon. Now both of these can cause us some problems, but let's focus on the feral pigeon. Is this the one that we can get in urban areas, sometimes rural, but predominantly they cause this issue in urban areas. It might be where they're sitting or nesting or even resting. These areas, they will then defecate onto the floor or the tables and chairs around us, and again this can cause some public health problems relating to their droppings. In the UK we have quite a few species of gulls. The main gulls that we may come across will be the herring gull as well as the common gull, and there's a couple of bigger ones, the greater black-backed gull and the lesser black-backed gull. These are the common ones we might see around our towns and countryside. Gulls are also really common around coastal areas, and we always think of them as seagulls, and even though this is not scientifically correct, the name is gulls, it is something we commonly refer to them as. Pigeons and gulls are most likely to cause us a problem when they start affecting our public health or public safety. So with feral pigeons, for example, when they are sitting or resting and overlooking a food source, and possibly when they're nesting also, they're going to have a lot of droppings associated with that activity. And also their nesting material, it can harbour a lot of bacteria that can cause us some public health concerns. With a lot of the gull species, they can be a little bit aggressive, especially around the breeding season when they have nests and eggs to protect. So when human beings get close to that, they may show that aggression. So really important that we consider that, and where we need to deal with them under that public health frame. Feral pigeons and gulls have a slightly different nesting or breeding cycle. With feral pigeons, they'll generally breed all year round if the conditions are right, if they've got some nice shelter and food, and it's normally about 2 eggs per clutch. Whereas gulls, there's only really one time of the year, and that's about springtime, that they'll start laying or building their nests and then laying their eggs. When these bird species become a little bit of a problem and they become a pest, it is really important that we deal with them, and that's because they do carry a few harmful bacteria and diseases within their droppings. For example, with the feral pigeon, again, like with most pests, you can get food poisoning bacteria such as Salmonella and E. coli, but also they carry something called ornithosis, which when you've got dry droppings, once those droppings are disturbed and that dust goes out into the environment, if you breathe that in, it can cause some issues within your lungs. So really important that we don't have those droppings and nesting materials associated with an environment that we're close to. With gulls, their droppings and nesting material can also cause similar problems, but they can also be a little bit more aggressive than feral pigeons would be, especially around the breeding and egg laying season. If you were to walk into close proximity to where a nest is, they can be very aggressive. When feral pigeons find a suitable place to build their nest and rear their eggs, normally they're happy with that environment, and if they can, they'll certainly stick around and stay within it, so the problem's not going to go away on its own. Gulls are slightly different in that because they just have that one breeding per season, once those chicks have fledged from the nest, the adults will also leave, so they don't stick around for quite as long. As with any animal pest, certainly with bird pest species, it's really important that we always consider prevention before any control. We want birds in our environment and they're protected as well under legislation. So the top things to think about to try and prevent these birds from causing us a problem is that we reduce their harbourage. Now, looking specifically at feral pigeons, they like to sit on the edges of buildings or maybe even window ledges. The reason they do this, it might be that they're sunning themselves during the day, or possibly they're overlooking a really good food source and they want to keep an eye on it, and when something appears they'll swoop down and feed from it. So these areas where they're sitting and resting, we've got to try and proof them, make sure that they can't sit there, putting up things like netting or spikes. That's a really good way to prevent feral pigeons from becoming a problem. With gulls, the areas that they like to build their nests are flat roofs and possibly on the top of chimneys. So again, if we can look at any proofing methods that will stop them from being able to build these nests, that will prevent any control from having to occur. Problem birds are difficult to deal with for a number of reasons. The first reason would be that because of the nature of them and that they fly, they're usually going to be up in high areas, so the access to them to actually implement this proofing work can be pretty tricky, and you're going to need those tools to be able to get up there. Another reason why pest birds can be hard to control is because you've got to have quite a lot of experience and knowledge on the birds themselves and the legislation surrounding them. You've got to be able to identify that bird and make sure you're using practices that are legally authorised. Because of the complicated nature of dealing with pest bird species, and also the need to have the knowledge and experience with dealing with them, you always need to make sure you employ a professional pest management company who will use that skill and experience to not only carry out an effective bird control process, but they will also have the skills and knowledge to make sure they're working within legislation. When you call out a pest professional, the first thing you can expect is that they'll do a thorough survey. They really need to establish what species of bird that they're dealing with and also in what areas. When they have done this, they will put together a comprehensive bird management plan, because that's what's really needed. You need to manage these bird populations, make sure they're removed effectively and humanely, but also prevented from returning. A pest professional will always try a non-lethal approach to bird management. This is a professional standard, but also it is actually a legal requirement. Some examples of non-lethal control are scaring devices and also nest removal before eggs actually get laid. If lethal control was to be considered, then the pest professional will discuss this with you and go through all the options they have in terms of the legislation and what they can legally do. Once a pest professional has confirmed that they can legally and lethally control a certain bird species, they've then got two main options. That might be culling with an air rifle or live cage trapping. Once these birds have been trapped in a cage, they'll be taken away and humanely dispatched. A pest professional will always have the equipment necessary to deal with your problem effectively, safely and humanely. To find a professional pest management company to deal with your bird infestation, then you can use the BPCA Find a Pest Controller tool. All you need to do is enter your postcode, and then you'll be presented with a list of pest controllers within your area, and you can be sure that all of these pest professionals are trained, trusted and audited by BPCA.
For more information about birds, please visit bpca.org.uk/birds. If you need a pest management company, then find a local member at bpca.org.uk/find. Alternatively, you can call our 24/7 helpline on 01332 294 288.